Okay everyone, in this video we're going to talk about Chinese history. I got a few complaints about how negative my first video sounded, and someone told me that their history defines who they are as a people as well as their overall resentment towards foreigners. I was also told that social isolation towards foreign immigrants is only because they have their history and they have their reasons. I find that hard to believe considering that not every Chinese individual in existence feels that way towards us. But just how cut and dry is their history? Sure, they have a history of being invaded by foreign powers, there's no doubt about that, especially when Tankmen had stood in the name of Chinese freedom in front of a row of foreign tanks. Yeah, those tanks were foreign. There was a time when Chinese leaders had also made official statements describing how they cannot allow foreign ideology to have its place among the Chinese people. I guess if foreign ideology threatens their national social harmony, I guess it makes sense, especially since the founding fathers of communism were in fact Chinese. How can we know for certain whether or not their history has anything to do at all with any of the discrimination foreigners face in China? I guess the only way to truly understand their inflated self-esteem is to go back through time. 'Cause hey, where we're going, we don't need roads. Okay, so here we are in the time of Louis XIV. At this time, Europe had a total crush on China. Love at first sight. The French make knockoffs of Chinese art. French see Chinese culture and philosophy as a remedy for many ills plaguing Europe. Yeah, China thinks Europe is a great guy and all, but isn't that interested. And Europe doesn't take that too well. It's kind of like how Taiwan today isn't that much into China. Then Britain gets China addicted to opium. China doesn't like it at first, then the Brits kill people left and right. And then China decided opium's great, and we don't really need Hong Kong. So yeah, there were the Opium Wars. There were 3 of them. During the third one, opium was referred to as soap during the war against Japan. I guess we have this person right here to thank. But hey, we've all been there. It's like when I was teaching English in China, I had a Chinese girlfriend. Everybody in my neighborhood knew about it, and I had another female visitor who was just a friend. People thought I was cheating on my girlfriend when really I wasn't. I found out later on the only reason people cared is only because I was a foreigner. So I got really upset when I found out I was being discriminated this way just because I was foreign. Oh, and one time, I tried to defend myself against a wallet thief, then many local people started attacking me, assuming it was my fault. Why? Because I am a foreigner. So, how did I respond? I got everyone addicted to opium, and I stole their house. Okay, I guess I understand. I think I know why China did not like foreigners before. Okay, now let's look at World War II. The Sino-Japanese War that took place between China and Japan during that time was a serious one, so were the Chinese capable of winning that war by themselves? Let's find out. So many territories of China were occupied by Japan. Before Pearl Harbor, the Americans were in the business of selling arms to both Britain and China. After Pearl Harbor, America got into the war. Ben Affleck, to the rescue!
Alright boys, let's knock their clocks off! Drop your ordnance! Bombs away! One away! Bombs away! Bombs away! 2 away! 3 away! 4 away!
The Japanese needed many units of their military, air force, and navy on the Japanese home islands to fight the fierce battles they had to fight against the evil invading Americans. Without America in the war, the manpower used to fight the Americans would have been instead used to fight the Chinese. Besides, the Chinese were already in a losing position anyway, since Japan had a superior army compared to what the Chinese had. In the end, the American Hellcats brought the Japanese Air Force to their knees, and the atom bomb brought all of Japan to its knees. Clearly, China would be occupied by Japan today if no foreign powers were involved. When Japan occupied Hong Kong, the British and Canadian military sent some of their units over to Hong Kong to defend the city from Japan. We lost. Unfortunately, Canada did not have this sexy beast at the time. Sure enough, if you research what the Communist Party did during that time, you'll find they weren't the heroes many Chinese believed them to be. The Long March? Yeah, the communists were running scared. After the war was over, Mao himself said there was no need for Japan to apologize for the war because they helped the communists defeat the nationalists. It was mainly the nationalists who fought the Japanese, and therefore much of their manpower had to be sacrificed in the war. Therefore, the KMT had a smaller manpower to work with during the Chinese Civil War, which made it much easier for Chairman Mao to defeat them. I only wish it was easy to understand why some people make it sound like a black and white, cut and dry, simple issue. But today it's complicated. There is way too much gray in their history. 50 shades of gray to be exact. Some online trolls try to justify negative resentment towards foreigners, but there isn't even a steady foundation to do so. It's like a puzzle that can't be solved. Look at it. It's a gang-raped, bitch-slapped, broken down, bloody mess of a timeline. No matter what crime or atrocity you want to accuse foreigners of being responsible for, some domestic issue within Chinese history can always be found with the exact same magnitude and overall severeness, which involves local people suffering at the hands of other locals, which has nothing to do with foreigners at all. Besides, the warlords of ancient China throughout the thousands of years of Chinese history committed atrocities against other Chinese people while invading different parts of China, which is no better or any less severe than what foreigners, like me, did anyway. It's also interesting to note that China had a few foreign heroes in their history as well. One of them was a German businessman, someone who managed a guarded facility owned by Siemens. I said Siemens. That's better. During the Nanjing massacre, John Rabe ordered the guards to open the main gate and let in as many Chinese people in as humanly possible. And he fed and took care of them as best as he could. Because the facility was a German-managed compound, the Japanese couldn't do anything to it since Germany was an ally. Looking at China's mass development today, the only reason China has developed so well with the modern-day technological conveniences and advancements is only because of North America and Europe. The only reason China is very well developed the way that it is today is because the West and Europe invested their technology and money into China. What would happen if foreigners never made such investments? How would China be today if China never had any interaction or contact with the outside world at all? Would they have bicycles, cars, high-tech stuff in general? With no contact with the outside world at all throughout the last 2,000 years of history, China would be roughly how they were 2,000 years ago. Sure, there are certain things today China developed on their own, but they could only develop their own technology using the technology the West shared with China as a platform to build off of. So, how cut and dry is China's history with foreigners? My conclusion is this. Human corruption and self-centered motives existed all throughout world history. It exists within every single human being there is. Except for me, that is. China didn't suffer at the hands of foreigners. China suffered at the hands of the same human corruption that exists within all of us, which is the same human corruption that leads to racism, prejudice, discrimination, and wars. Okay, I gotta calm down now. Thank you so much for joining me through my journey through time. Let's go back home. Oh my goodness, it was Earth all along. You bastards! You blew it up!